welcome. You're watching The Social Network with me, Kashish. Today on the show, we discussed 28-year-old Jesse Ryder, who was assaulted in an assault last night in Auckland, in Christchurch. And, of course, he's in the hospital at the moment with head injuries as well as a lung puncture. There have been many views on social media. Of course, many of them have come out in support of that young, promising cricketer. And, of course, many others have critiqued him because of his alcoholic background. But, of course, on the show today, we discuss whether the Delhi Daredevils, how will they be affected by the loss of Jesse Ryder? Joining us on the show today, we've got with us Gaurav Sethi, who's the board member of the Board Cricket Crazy Indians. And also joining us straight from Christchurch, we're joined by Tim McConnell. He joins us live on a video call. And Tim is a digital strategist and will be giving us the perspective from there. Tim, I just want to start with you first. What's really happening over there? Do we have any update? Are there any leads at all to try and understand what really happened last night? Because we do know that this is not the first time that Jesse Ryder has been caught in a brawl.
No, that's right. And I think, I guess Jesse will always have to start, his any situation like this with that type of that type of background. I guess what we do know now and what's come out sort of later this evening is that he was leaving the restaurant with his Wellington teammates. They'd played the semi-final that afternoon against Canterbury. He was one of the last to leave the restaurant, and as he was leaving, he was called back into the bar by a couple of individuals. Jesse went back into the bar and I think spoke to those individuals briefly, and then left the bar again. And was then followed from the bar, followed by these two men. He was assaulted immediately outside the bar, and then tried to get away, and went through a car park and was assaulted again in a more serious fashion. It seems to be at this stage, I guess, an unprovoked attack, and that's the way that the media are reporting it here. Okay. But obviously, there's still a lot to come out.
All right. We'll, of course, track all of those developments. But just to quickly welcome Dilip Premachandran, who's the editor-in-chief of Wisden India, on the show. Dilip, thank you so much for joining us. We're, of course, talking about Jesse Ryder and the impact now on Delhi Daredevils, who've simply decided to replace Jesse Ryder. Tim, also just really quickly, can you give us a sense of what the reportage on Jesse Ryder has been about? Have there been questions raised on the fact that this is not the first time he's been caught in a brawl? And is it perhaps time for him to clean up his act?
Well, I think given the nature of, the situation, the fact it was a very quiet evening in Christchurch, we were out at a restaurant 500 metres away an hour earlier. We went past that bar. There weren't that many people around. They've only spoken to 10 witnesses so far, so that's sort of testament. There weren't a lot of people around at this time, so it was a very quiet evening. So I guess in that terms, it's a very unusual situation. And I guess, as I said before, Jesse had spoken to those men in the bar, and I guess the only people that know what that conversation was are probably Jesse and those men. And I guess at the moment, people, because of Jesse's injuries, are really thinking of him and hoping he's going to pull through this. And I guess then further down the track, we might shed a little more light on exactly what was said and exactly why these men decided that they would assault him.
All right, I just want to bring you in, Gaurav, at this stage. Jesse Ryder was something that the Delhi Devils team was banking on, in a sense, after the exit, in a sense, of Kevin Peterson. And without him, he was expected to fly in tomorrow. How much does this impact the Delhi Daredevils team?
More than, I'd say, just the Delhi Daredevils, I think this affects New Zealand cricket deeply, because Jesse Ryder has been on the mend for more than a year now. He's committed not to play international cricket till he feels he's cleaned up his act. So he hasn't turned up. He has been playing, however, cricket, and it's sad almost that yesterday when he did play, he scored his a first ball duck, and today the next thing you know, he's knocked out, and you see him fighting for his life. Someone like Jesse Ryder, I feel, is pretty much a rock and roll cricketer. You just see his entire life, the way it's come about. It's been very fraught from the start. Yeah. He comes from a broken home. He was pretty much dumped by his dad when he was a teenager. Yeah. And his life has been pretty much, it's very similar. And, what has been ringing in my ears today is the song by Jim Morrison, which is Riders on the Storm. And, you see the way this man has lived his life.
Yeah.
What you will document finally is that the man has a problem with alcoholism, with discipline, and, that is what you'd be hearing about. What you don't see is the extreme gift of cricket that this man has. He's one of the best cricketers to emerge out of New Zealand in many years. What I'd like to just, a little thought, because I think this could be a huge loss to cricket, is, the song Riders on the Storm by Jim Morrison, which is Riders on the storm, into this house we're born, into this world we're thrown, like a dog without a bone, an actor out alone, riders on the storm. And this man's life has been like that, he's pretty much alone. And it's for maybe a teenager who still, as a 28-year-old, is pretty much that, he's grappling for maybe finding his own space.
Yeah. Okay. Gaurav, of course, always has some interesting anecdote to bring to the show. But Dilip, I just want to throw that question out to you. Gaurav was just talking about discipline and about cricket. And in a sense, IPL is not really demanding that at all. How do you see this entire trio, in a sense, of Jesse Ryder now in hospital, struggling really, in a sense, with this condition? The fact that he was supposed to fly in tomorrow to be a part of Delhi Daredevils, and of course tied this into the huge amounts of money that he was paid, and the fact that he had actually voluntarily stepped down from playing international cricket.
I was talking about Jesse Ryder's alcoholism problem. So, this case, it seems fairly clear that it was a completely unprovoked attack on a man sitting with his friends in a bar, having a quiet time with it. I don't see how his past has anything to do with that. And this is to me, it speaks more of a very dangerous culture that's coming not just to cricket, but all sport, where there's a section of people who maybe call themselves fans, I don't think they are, who have this sense of entitlement that just because they go to watch games or they follow a team or a sport, that they have some sort of rights over players. And I think that's just insane. It's insane, it's pathetic. And this is a sad outcome of that. You have no rights over what a player does in his free time. If he doesn't want to talk to you or he doesn't want to give you an autograph, bad. And that's how it is. But time and again, you see this especially in India at airports and hotel lounges and wherever else. People just go up to players and expect them to respond to any request, and that's just not right. I mean, they have their downtime, they have their free time, and you have to respect that.
Can you talk a little bit, Dilip, about the IPL culture, and do you think that the two things are related at all, or is it possible even to make a connection between the two things?
See, I don't think it's fair in this case, because if you recall, last year Ryder came to the IPL with his manager and a psychologist to make sure that his behavior was as exemplary as possible. Now, when young men have paid a lot of money, things will happen. They will go out and party, and I don't see a problem with that. I see a problem with people thinking, okay, famous man or famous cricketer in the bar, let me go and pick a fight with him and I'll be a big hero in front of my friends. I'm sorry, you're not a big hero, you're just a loser. And that's all I can say. And this kind of thing happens again and again. For all you know, tomorrow it could be an Indian player that this happens to. And I think we need to look at that culture rather than what happens to the players and what they do with their IPL money, because that's honestly their business.
Actually, one of the things that we wanted to pick up and try and understand is just throw the question out to all three of you. Tim, if I want to start with you first. Of course, within hours of the announcement that Jesse Ryder is now in hospital and he's not going to be coming down tomorrow in India and being a part of the Delhi Daredevils team, they're automatically and immediately looking for a replacement. Is that something, do you find that problematic at all in any way at all?
From my view, I think the thoughts have to be with Jesse and him getting well. I think that there'll always be a replacement, of value that they'll get in, and you'll find team balance. The IPL teams are very, very rich with talent and rich with experience, and although they've lost a key player and a real sort of highlight reel, that Jesse is, I think, apart from, the disappointment of the fans in the IPL, probably the thoughts have to go with Jesse and him getting well. And I do like to reiterate your sort of Dilip's comments. I think they're they're on the money in terms of what's happened on this occasion as well.
Okay, Tim, I'm going to have to slip into a short break at this point, but we come back. I want to look at some of the other cases, perhaps, like the Luke Park case that you were telling me about last year. I want to look at all of that and see whether there is, a culture really within the IPL culture that's actually allowing things like this and sort of turning a blind eye in a sense, and also, like I said, really quickly finding replacements for people should they exit on some note. But we'll look at that after the short break. All right, welcome back to the social network. We've still got Dilip with us and Tim and, of course, Gaurav. Dilip, I want to throw this question out to you first. Of course, we were talking before the break about several people being involved in, of course, we were, earlier we were reporting Rahul Sharma and Wayne Parnell who tested positive. Then there was a Luke Park case last year. Does this whole IPL phenomenon actually encourage compromising on cricket rigor and cricket discipline?
I think that's a very naive way of looking at it. It's a way of looking at it that completely ignores the game's history. I'm even talking about my own lifetime. I mean, in my lifetime, when I was a teenager, there were many stories about the Australian cricket team going for Ashes tours to England, and they'd have competitions about who could drink the most cans of beer. And I think the record at one time was 53 on a 24-hour flight. Going further back to Sir Garfield Sobers, there's an entire chapter in a book, a biography of a Scottish football legend called Jim Baxter. The chapter is called Drunken Sobers in Nottingham. It's about many nights when the two of them went out, got completely plastered, and then they'd come back the next day. Sobers would go out and play cricket, play brilliantly a lot of the time, and Baxter would go out and play football. So I think it's been part of cricket's culture for as long as most people can remember. And it's deeply unfair to pinpoint the IPL as the cause of this because it's been happening long before that.
Okay, fair enough. Gaurav, but, there's a party, every night, once the IPL season starts. And, of course, Jesse Ryder is 28. And, of course, many of the others are way older and full adults. But what kind of an impact do you think this would have on younger teenagers who are just for whom IPL is just this new, glamorous, bludgeoning phenomenon?
Yeah. I think when Dilip was talking about, the Aussies on that long flight where they have the record for putting down those enormous number of beer cans down. Now, you put a lot of Indian kids in their place who 16, 17, 18, because each IPL team signs on a lot of youngsters. There would be largely nameless, faceless youngsters who would be in these IPL parties. Yeah. Now, there you are, and you're seeing some of your mentors, your seniors there, and everyone parties. I mean, why wouldn't anyone party? Sure. If you've just had 3-4 hours of a tough game, you're out there in the evening, and these parties start very late.
Yeah.
They go on till the wee hours of the morning, and the next thing you know, you're packing up and moving to another venue where you'd be possibly playing a game the day after or the next day.
Yeah.
So what you're putting through, even if some of these kids are not playing, I'm sure each one of them is playing for an India cap finally.
Yeah.
Or they aspire to play for India one day.
Absolutely.
Now here you are, you have 2 months of a paid party.
Yeah.
Where you're just going, I don't know how, a lot of them may not have even...
and paid a lot.
Yeah, no, fine. That is besides the point. I mean, one day they will earn what they're paid. But I'm saying here is the dream of not just these kids, but the family. And a lot of families go through a lot to make their kids play cricket.
Yeah.
Because it is pretty much the dream of a lot of parents today.
Yeah.
So what you're looking at is these kids. I mean, put yourself in the place of a 17, 18-year-old who is suddenly there at an IPL party. There are all kinds of attractions. Why wouldn't be there? It's a party where you're talking about business magnates who pull off all stops.
Yeah.
Now, there are various kinds of IPL parties also. I mean, the kind which have been documented and those which aren't. What we do here of the stray cases which really blew up in our face, whether it is Luke Parnell and you had Siddharth Mallya, you're talking about an owner who was also involved there. It got very nasty. This was something which was taken care of again out of courts. But before that, they were out to sue each other. It got very nasty on Twitter. I think for a while it really was trending.
Yeah. just quickly, Gaurav, I just want to ask Dilip one very quick question. You know, Gaurav is talking about this extensive behind-the-scenes knowledge about IPL parties and stuff, and also bringing in the fact that there are all of these youngsters who are aiming one day to play for the national team. Does this not destroy, in a sense, the kind of discipline and rigor that the national team expects them to put for themselves?
See, show me one profession where this kind of temptation isn't there. Any youngster who's on his first job making decent money, asked to go out by his seniors, I mean, is prone to the same kind of temptation, maybe at a far lesser level. You may not have supermodels there, you may not have champagne there and whatever else, but I think everyone's prone to temptation, and I look at a lot of the young players, and they take far more care of themselves than players from the 70s or 80s. You look at your average pro now, they really do look after themselves. I know some of them go off the rails, but that's true in any era. I think you've got to give some of the young players credit for having enough brains to figure out what's good for them and what's not. And they do have role models like Rahul Dravid, like VVS Lakshman, Sachin, Anil Kumble, so many of them to look up to who have not lived their lives like this and have not been involved in incidents like this. So why do we just assume that they look at a Jesse Ryder or somebody else who's been involved in a scrape and say, oh, I want to be like that? I think we should give them a bit more credit than that.
Okay, Dilip wants to definitely give them credit. Gaurav says that it's not, the debate is not quite that simple, but we'll have to leave it here. And of course, everybody on the panel hoping that Jesse Ryder recovers fast and very, very quickly. But that's all we have time for on the social network today. Come back tomorrow, same time at 6:30.